I was 37 when I had the first bleed in my head. I was a drinker and a smoker, and those things, although they weren't the only things that I did that contributed to that, definitely played a massive role in making my blood vessels weak, because smoking and drinking in combination, they do damage the blood vessels and cause bleeds, right, for a lot of people. And if you're somewhere near around the age of 37, even if you're a few years off and you have smoked and you've been drinking heavily for a number of years, by the time you get to 37, I had been drinking for 10 years. No, I'd say I'd been drinking for 20 years, Helen, and smoking for at least 25 years on and off. That's what kind of ends up happening. You end up getting these things catching up with you and biting you on the bum, as they say.
Yeah, of course.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamis, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Bill from recoveryafterstroke.com. This is episode 13, and my guest today is Helen Mitas from Hypnofit. Helen is a clinical hypnotherapist, master NLP trainer, and the author of Mindset Dominance. Now, just before we get started, if you have ever wondered what else I can do to help you with your stroke recovery, you should know that I have set up a few recovery after stroke support packages where stroke survivors can come into a community while trying to get better on their own, and also get help from people who are already further along the way in the recovery timeline. I too am a 3 times stroke survivor and a brain surgery survivor, and I have built for you what I was missing when I was sent home from hospital, in the hope that you don't have to do stroke as hard as I did. Support packages give you access to a variety of tools 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that you can also work on other areas of stroke recovery that you don't get the chance to do at physical therapy or rehabilitation. With tailored support available for less than $8.50 per week, all recovery after stroke support packages bring stroke recovery to you in the comfort of your own home. To try recovery after stroke support and see if it is right for you, you will get the first 7 days free, as well as a 30-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. As a bonus, you will get 2 face-to-face Zoom support calls with myself to take your recovery to the next level. Go to recoveryafterstroke.com/support to sign up. It won't cost you anything for the first 7 days, and you will get a full refund if you are not happy after 30 days. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Now it's on with the show.
G'day, Helen.
Hello.
You're a clinical hypnotherapist, and I want to know what a clinical hypnotherapist is. Am I going to end up leaving this interview clucking like a chook every time someone mentions my name today? What's going to happen?
It's funny that, that's the first thing people think that we do, in hypnotherapy. But I guess the difference between a hypnotherapist and a hypnotist is a hypnotist will do that for you. And certainly hypnotherapists are trained to do that as well. But as a hypnotherapist, we actually bring hypnosis and therapy together so that we help people, eliminate the habits and addictions and so on that hold them back in life, and help them move forward to what it is that they actually want. So we combine, hypnosis and therapy together, hence a clinical hypnotherapist.
Okay, hypnosis and therapy.
Together, yeah. So we use hypnotherapy for people to achieve what they need to in life. With hypnotists, they're the ones that are on stage, and really their purpose is to entertain. That's what they're there for, is to make people laugh. And that my purpose, although I'd like to see people laugh, it's not solely so they can laugh. It is so that they can feel really good about themselves.
And then be happy, right?
Exactly, and be happy. Correct.
So when somebody comes to you, though, do people come to you and they know exactly what they want to fix? Because sometimes people come confused, right? Tell me about how people come to you typically.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Bill. So, in fact, what people mostly come for is first. So usually people come for the purpose of their symptoms, and their symptoms might be alcohol dependence, it might be smoking, it might be overeating, emotional eating, and so on. And so that's what they come here for. They come so that those symptoms can be eliminated. But most of the time, there is something underlying at the subconscious level which needs to be resolved first. So we get rid of the cause and then we deal with the symptoms. So people don't usually come, some do, but people don't usually come so that they can love themselves, as an example.
Right.
But yet, usually, that's what we need to achieve first, is we need to help people respect themselves, love themselves, so that they don't end up doing those self-sabotaging behaviours afterwards.
Right. You mentioned the subconscious. What's that? And how is it different to the conscious?
Conscious
Because
mind?
some people might not know what the subconscious
Yeah,
is.
sure. So we have the conscious mind, and that is our logical, analytical mind. So when I'm talking to you now, we're talking consciously. So we're focusing on what we're saying. But the thing with the conscious mind is that it brings up blocks. There's a lot of, buts. I can't do this, I can't do that. There's a lot of limitations. Our subconscious mind is what happens underneath the surface. So right underneath the surface, it's when we do things automatically without thinking. So if you can think of an example, for instance, would be when you first learn to drive a car and you consciously focus on where you put your hands, you consciously focus on the mirrors that you need to look at, you consciously focus on what's going on around you. But after a period of time, you've done it so many times that it becomes subconscious. You do it automatically without thinking. And then before you know it, you've driven from point A to point B and you don't know how you got there. It was all subconscious.
Right.
And you're still driving perfectly. You're still automatically looking at the mirrors, automatically focusing, but it's just all happening underneath the surface. So what happens underneath the surface at the subconscious level are all our habits, all our values, all our emotions, and that's what holds us back from moving forward. So we can, for instance, consciously say, okay, tomorrow that's it. Tomorrow I'm only going to have good carbs and proteins and I'm going to exercise as soon as I get up. Consciously we say that.
I've said it a few times, Helen.
Yeah, but subconsciously something else happens and you get back into that old pattern, that old program. So all those programs are held at the subconscious level.
Okay, so in your experience, what's your sort of feeling about why these things occur? So habits like smoking, overeating, drinking. I know that they start off sometimes. I know that I started smoking when I was cool, right?
Yeah, of course.
And then I had to have a drink while I was being cool to refresh myself.
Yeah.
Know? So smoking and beers kind of went together. But what do you feel is the underlying cause of why people pick up something, do it a couple of times, and then turn it into a habit?
And then continue. Well, it's interesting that I've found that with smoking, as an example, it's different to overeating and completely different. So with smoking, it does tend to be the reason that you just mentioned. Very rarely does it start because of emotional issues. It usually starts because it was just cool to do it and that's what everybody else did, and so you start doing that with your friends. That's how it first starts most of the time. With other behaviours, such as other addictive behaviours like emotional eating, it's usually the reverse. It's usually that it's a crutch. It actually gives you that instant satisfaction and makes you feel good temporarily. And so people started that from an earlier age when things were not going the way they wanted them to, and they've continued to do that when things, when things are not all well in their life. So emotional eating usually stems from having some sort of crutch that they need to use so that they can cope with what's going on in their life.
Right.
In terms of drugs, it can be all sorts of reasons. It could be that they were traumatized when they were young, and so it really is just a blocking out of what happened in the past. Or it could be that it started, with friendship groups as well. So it all depends. But usually with people that are on the drugs, it certainly is much more difficult to get off it, and so we need to revisit as to where they were at that point in their life and how we can help them feel empowered moving forward.
So when you say you need to revisit the event that began them down their path. How do you go about revisiting that?
Yeah, so we do that. A lot of people say, I can't remember what happened in my childhood, but it's all there. So our subconscious mind, if you can imagine, it's like, if you think about your laptop, your PC, and all those files that are in the archived files, they're not immediately apparent to you when you turn on your PC. You can't see them instantly, but if you go looking for them, you can find them. So all our memories are there. So even people who say to me, "Oh, I won't be able to do that because I don't have any memory of my childhood," I can be guaranteed that they will when I hypnotize them and that I'm accessing and talking to their subconscious mind. So we go back to what we call the ISE, the initial sensitizing event, which led them to where they are today. So there is usually a series of events in the first 7 years of their life, in their formative years, where we do need to go back, not go right into the event necessarily and relive the event, but see it from a different perspective and get our learnings from that event, if that makes sense. Because no matter what happens in our life, Bill, and this is something that people find it very difficult to grasp, but it's so important, that no matter what happens, no matter how negative the event, there is something positive you can actually take from that event. Yeah.
I certainly have experienced something along those lines in the past, like with a couple of my own challenges and health issues. It's definitely a new way of sort of seeing things, though. How easy is it for people to come from, that was a terrible event, it's really affected me really badly. What's the positive they can get out of something that's really traumatic?
Yeah, well, consciously, it's very difficult. So I don't do that consciously. I don't do that just by talking to them. Right. Too difficult. So we do it when they're under the state of hypnosis, where they don't have the barriers, where I can easily remove blockages. That's how it happens for me, easily and effortlessly. Whereas with, if you're just sitting there talking to someone about them finding a positive out of them being, sexually abused, as an example, there would be an enormous amount of resistance about that, and they wouldn't be able to find a positive. There'd be too many blocks in the way. But when we're in hypnosis, those blocks are removed, and believe it or not, even with sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, there is something that they can gain and take as a positive that they can use in their future.
Yeah, I don't mean to be presumptuous, but could something like, how can the people that have experienced sexual abuse help others that have experienced that now that they are wiser and older?
Exactly.
Okay.
Something like that. But I never suggest anything to them. I never suggest. This is the beauty about hypnotherapy, is it's not about what I tell them, because these people that come to me, they know what's going on. It's just that they can't help their behaviours. Consciously, they know that a lot of their behaviours are not logical and not helpful. So it's not about telling them information that they already know. And that's, I guess, the difference between someone who's going to a psychologist where there's conscious work being done and someone who comes to a hypnotherapist. It's about unblocking what is inside them. So I see myself as a facilitator, where I see the subconscious mind of each individual as all-knowing and all-wise and has all the answers already. It's just that I help them access those answers. I help them access their own internal resources.
So some of the words, what would, very briefly, some of the words be around helping somebody come up with a way to see a positive in a traumatic event? What would be some of the words that you use that don't suggest anything? How would you sort of say that in a situation where somebody's in hypnosis?
So when I take them to where they need to go and they're looking down at that event, I would ask them, what's there to learn? What's there to learn from that event?
Right.
The learning of which will allow you to let go of this emotion easily and effortlessly. So your subconscious mind, when you need it in the future, it'll be there for you. What's there to learn? And with your older eyes, your wiser eyes, what else is there to learn? So that might be one way.
Yeah, it's beautiful, right? It's not putting your version of the world and trying to implant it in their version of the world, because it's just not going to happen, is it?
No, and that's what I love about my work more than anything. I love that it's really about, helping people be in touch with their own internal strengths, their own internal resources that have been there all the time, but they just never knew it. So that's what I love more than anything in the world is that aspect of my work.
Yeah, and as a result of that, you can then work with people from any background. You can work with people with any challenge.
Correct.
Is there some people that you really love to work with? I know that you love to work with everybody.
Yes,
But is there someone that you really, really love to work with?
Yeah, I really, really, really love to work with adolescents and young adults who suffer from depression and severe anxiety. So I really, really, really love working with these people. My heart just bursts with joy and love because they come to me, quite often they've quit school, or they're not going to school very often, not able to have a part-time work. Their social network is limited. They have such incredible limiting beliefs about what they're capable of. And when I see them, I see their potential.
Yeah.
So I see what is underneath the surface from the very first session. And I love, seeing them at the end of my program where they've achieved that. So they're wonderful to work with. Lots of reasons. One is that because they're younger, they actually are really easy to work with. Yeah. Their mind is very, very flexible, and it goes very easily to where I want it to go in terms of, seeing their life in an empowering way rather than, being a victim to their life. And so this is my greatest joy, is to help young adults and adolescents with depression and anxiety, for sure.
Yeah. Tell me about, does it often then the work that you do lead to stopping depression and anxiety becoming really chronic later on in life? So what I'm trying to say is, the people that you notice that you're dealing with in their 30s and 40s, would they have sort of potentially avoided some of those challenges in their 30s or 40s had they realized that maybe some type of intervention was worthwhile in their adolescent and their early sort of adulthood?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about them almost having a different set of eyes. So because they've seen their past differently, so it's completely reframed, and they've seen their past in a different set of eyes, the challenges that present themselves in the now are also seen differently, and therefore the challenges that come into the future. So there's a couple of things that happen. One is that if we don't resolve the issues from the past, for instance, if we feel angry about something that happened in the first 7 years of our life, we don't realise that we feel angry about that still, but we do, because if we talk about it, an emotion comes up. And then every time we've experienced anger after that, it actually all gets connected. So that the next time something happens in our life, we're not just reacting for that event, we're reacting to all the events prior to that where we felt that emotion of anger. And so that's when we have what many people see as a overreaction, when really there's no such thing as an overreaction. It's a reaction. People think it's an overreaction because they can't understand or see what else you're reacting to. But in fact, there are so many other things that you're reacting to, not just this event. It's just that this event is another event that just gets added to that. So with the work that we do, we clear the past so that the event that happens now, they're only reacting to that event. So my whole aim for all my clients is that any negative experience that they've experienced in their life is just a story. There's no emotional connection to that story. It's just a story. So I want them to be able to say, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened. And no matter what it is, there's no emotion. That is true resolution. So many people think true resolution is where they don't think about the story, but they're coping fine. But then once they think about it and talk about it, then this emotion comes up, which means that they haven't really resolved it in the first place. So I want them to be able to get their story, put it in the light, see it for what it is, talk about it, and it's just a story which brought them to where they are here today. That's my goal.
So you're telling me that my overreaction or my reaction when somebody hasn't loaded the dishwasher is actually not really that bad?
Yes, I'm saying that there's no such thing as an overreaction. That term just makes no sense. It's just your reaction to all the other times the dishwasher wasn't loaded, not just that one.
That's awesome. That makes me feel a lot better. I'm going to go out of this interview and I'm going to hug somebody instead.
Yeah, exactly.
Your business name, Hypnofit, suggests something else other than the type of stuff we've been talking about already. Tell me what Hypnofit is.
So Hypnofit is about being emotionally fit, mentally fit, and physically fit, because the mind and the body, as you know, is connected. There's no separation of the mind and the body. And the reason that my work is different, say, to somebody who just goes to a personal trainer to get physically fit, is that, I deal with the mental and emotional issues behind that first, or at the same time as a personal trainer would. So we have to be emotionally fit, we have to be mentally fit and physically fit. So we need to, in all those three areas need to, come together so we can achieve our goals.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. So some people will come to you, they will be overweight. Is it possible that they're not aware of the emotional part of their sort of challenge? They come to you saying, hey, I'm overweight. I want to lose weight. I've been running. I've been doing all this stuff. I don't feel better about myself. I'm not losing weight. It makes me eat more. It makes me do all this sort of stuff more.
Yeah.
What goes on? Like, does that happen?
All the time. All the time people come. There are two groups of clients that come here for weight loss. About 85%, which is the vast majority, they're overeating because there's a reason. They're using food as a crutch, and we have to get rid of it as a crutch before we can help them. There are about 15%, a smaller percentage, where really they just got themselves into bad habits, where they just started to do the same thing over and over again, but everything else in their life is quite rosy. So I deal with that group different to the other group. So there's no one size fits all. Right. So the group that just come to me, and I can see that really they're quite happy with every area of their life, but they just got themselves into some bad habits. We just deal with the habits. But with the other group, which is the biggest group, we need to go back and resolve all the unresolved issues so that I don't keep making the same, mistakes again, over and over again.
When I first started looking at my health after I had some my own health challenges, one of the things that I wanted to give up, I did give up immediately, was smoking. But it's pretty easy, right? The doctors said, you've had a bleed in the brain, your third one, you're going to have brain surgery. It didn't take me that long to end up quitting smoking. I quit after the first incident, which was 3 years before the surgery. But prior to that, I said many times that I wanted to quit. I had conversations with my family, with my friends. We did it all the time. We said it all the time. But it never got to that point where I was actually able to be, for lack of a better word, strong enough to actually follow through. The New Year's resolution, I'm going to quit smoking this year. And then at 1 minute past, I'm having a cigarette to bring the new year in. So what's the difference between somebody who gets to that point of I'm quitting now and never smokes again, and the person who comes in and says, I'm going to quit 15 times before they even come anywhere near quitting?
Yeah, that's really, really good question. So basically they need to really want to, and to really want to, the pain has to be, usually it's the pain that needs to be enough for them to quit smoking. So you had reached that point when you became unwell and you needed surgery, where you could see very clearly as to what would happen to you if you didn't stop smoking right now. The pain was at that point where you had to stop. The pain wasn't enough early on. That's why with the younger people, they still aren't connected to that pain. It's still a far away sort of outcome. To get emphysema, to get cancer, they really can't connect to that pain. So you need to connect to the pain. And what we do with hypnosis, we actually do take them down that path at the subconscious level. We take them into the future. What will happen if they remain a non-smoker? And we really make it very clear, 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, to the point where they have absolutely no doubt as to where they will be if they don't make that decision right now. So the pain needs to be enough for them to say, that's it. Another example would be I had a client who, was a big drinker, and he wanted to stop smoking, stop drinking, not just moderate it. And it was to the point where he had fallen out of his car. He'd nearly died. He risked, his children not having a father to the point where he said, that's it. I just can't have that happen. So usually it's some sort of big event, like a catalyst, that's brought them to me for those sort of addictive behaviours. Was a big drinker. She had fallen down and hit her head, at a big family wedding. And not only did she feel the pain of all of that, but she was completely and utterly humiliated and embarrassed. And that really extreme humiliation acted towards, pushing her to make a final decision, to say, yes, that is bad enough. That is really bad. I've got to stop this right now. Whereas if you're just, drinking a little bit too much and you feel a bit foggy in the morning and you're not getting up to do your exercise, you might not feel, the real reason as to what you need to stop that behaviour.
So often we can not have enough motivation early on when we're trying to quit. Is that what it is?
Yes, there needs to be a really big why. And that's why with smokers or anyone else, I don't take on clients where it's not them that wants to do it. For instance, quite often I have parents who bring me their adolescent teenagers, and, the parents might be throwing their credit card at me, literally because they want to do anything for their children, of course. But if I can't see that that adolescent or that teenager really wants to do this, then I'm not taking them on as a client, because it's not a forced process. It has to be that they're in the position where they really, really want to get well. And if they don't, then there's no point.
Yeah.
I'll see them when they are. Later on, perhaps, some time may need to pass before I see them, but it has to be that they're in that point in time where they've made the decision that they want change. They don't know how to change, but they want it.
Well, maybe I'll just give them a bit of a handy bit of information here now that we've got them and they're paying attention to us.
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
I was 37 when I had the first bleed in my head. I was a drinker and a smoker. And those things, although they weren't the only things that I did that contributed to that, definitely played a massive role in making my blood vessels weak, because smoking and drinking in combination, they do damage the blood vessels and cause bleeds, right, for a lot of people. And if you're somewhere near around the age of 37, even if you're a few years off and you have smoked and you've been drinking heavily for a number of years, by the time you get to 37, I had been drinking for 10 years, and not heavily, but enough, and smoking for, I'd say I'd been drinking for 20 years, Helen, and smoking for at least 25 years on and off. That's what kind of ends up happening. You end up getting these things catching up with you and biting you on the bum, as they say.
Yeah, of course.
So maybe you guys reconsider what it is that you're doing if you've never reconsidered it before. And for the young smokers, there's plenty of people in all the hospitals throughout Melbourne and the world that will have experienced a stroke in their teens and in their 20s. And a lot of the time it's got to do with, their habits, their food habits and their, extracurricular habits like smoking and drinking. So maybe that'll help demotivate
Absolutely,
people.
absolutely. Because, at that age, they would never imagine, just like you would never have imagined, that this could possibly happen to you.
Yeah. I looked fit, everything looked fine on the outside, and everyone even in hospital saying to me, but you don't look sick. Well, I couldn't be more sick than a bleed in the brain. It was probably as sick as one person can get. And then, and that was the challenge after that, was trying to convince people, no, I really am unwell. And you guys need to pay attention, because it's not just about how you look on the outside, whether you run, go to the gym, do any of that stuff. You still could be doing a lot of damage inside.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You made a little comment there before when you were explaining that last point about exercising in the morning. Can you tell me, I'm going to get to that in a moment, but I want to know what made you get into hypnotherapy?
Okay. That's a different story. So what made me get into hypnotherapy was around about 19 years ago. I had a massive challenge in my life, and that challenge led to depression and severe anxiety for me. So what happened was that I wanted to leave my husband, and I had a small child, and I come from a family that's Greek Cypriot in background, youngest of 5. Divorce just does not happen in our in our family, and the difficulty was that the person I was married to was actually a really nice guy. He really was. He, like my mother said, "What's your problem?" He doesn't hit you. He's not an alcoholic. He doesn't smoke. He's a really good provider. What's your problem? And that was the difficulty, was that he was a really nice guy, great provider, fabulous father, but I had came to a point in my life where I couldn't imagine myself growing as a person with him anymore. So he hadn't changed, but I had. And I struggled. And so it took me a good 4.5 years to actually get the courage to do that. And I was petrified of being a single mother. I was petrified of leaving the security of my life. And at that time, because there was no Google, I was looking at the newspaper, and there was an ad in the newspaper which said, "Are you feeling depressed, overwhelmed, as if everybody has a say in your life except you?" And I thought, oh my God, these people understand me. Yes, that's me. I have no say in my life, because I was the youngest of 5, and so my brother and my sisters were much older than me. It was like having 5 sets of parents, lectures coming from everywhere. They all thought that I was going crazy, and that, they were doing everything they could to keep the family together, because they were thinking I was making the worst mistake of my life. And especially, for the sake of my son, Peter, who was very little at the time. And so I went to this magnificent place. Every Thursday night I would take myself there, and we would have group work. And it was run by a clinical psychologist. And at the time, he did hypnotherapy, but you weren't allowed to say that. So back in the state of Victoria at the time, no one could say they did hypnotherapy.
Oh, wow.
It was against the law. So I never knew he did that, because we would go on these incredible retreats, like 2-day retreats to Sorrento, and he would do this group hypnosis on all of us, and it was the most incredible changes that would happen. And he called it guided imagery. It was only later on that I worked out that guided imagery is actually a technique that belongs in the hypnotherapy family. So he did group hypnosis on us, but I just didn't know it. And I had such incredible change. I became a stronger person than I'd ever become before. For once, really made my own decisions about the course of my life, because prior to that, everything was pretty much black and white for me. Like I had to go to uni, I had to get a great job, I had to marry this type of person, I was going to have 2 children, I was going to live in this suburb. So it was all mapped out, and it was all going to plan until I had this crisis. So for me to be able to cope with this crisis, I needed this intervention and this work. And I came out the other side feeling incredible and strong. And that's when I decided to change my physical appearance as well. So I became mentally strong, and I wanted my physical appearance to show how I felt inside. So then I went on this quest to become fitter in my 40s than I had ever become in my 20s by doing the challenges that I'd never imagined possible. So then I became obsessed and, almost addicted to exercise and the endorphins that you get from doing lots of exercise and feeling good about yourself. So, that path of self-empowerment, took me to a place where I was, working in corporate 22 years. And, I came to a point where I thought, I just can't do this for another 22 years. There's no meaning in this work. I'm a senior consultant, so I had a fabulous job, well-respected, project managed $1 million projects. But I was becoming increasingly dissatisfied with my purpose being to add to the bottom line of big organisations like Telstra, NAB, ANZ, and all the rest of them. That's what I was doing, was helping them get better and bigger profits. And certainly, there's no problem with that happening. That's great that they do, but I didn't want that to be my mission in life, and I couldn't handle the thought of doing another 22 years because it occurred to me that I was halfway in my working life, that I would still have to work another 22, 25 years before I could retire. So then what happened was that I found out about a lady in my consultancy company whose name is Casey Edwards, who left the consultancy company and wrote a book. And the book was called 30-something and Over It.
Can anyone relate to that?
Yes, and I was older than that. I was 40-something, but I was truly over it. And, they were talking about going to her book launch, and I thought, oh, my God, I have to read this book. And so the next day I went and got the book. I didn't know her because she had already left the business, but she worked in my consultancy company. So the book spoke to me because everything she said was my world, and it was about her finding her baby and talking about finding your baby that you need to nurture in life, your purpose. And at that point I thought, I don't know what my purpose is. And so I started to become very mindful of what part of my day made me happy and excited. And as I was sort of watching myself going through my day, the parts of the day that I enjoyed the most were the conversations I would have in the tea rooms with colleagues who, would say, oh, I can't do this. And I would help them and say to them, yes, you can do this. And they'd come back to me and they'd say, oh, Helen, you wouldn't believe it, but this is what I've done, usually to do with physical exercise or something like that. And then I thought, my God, this is my baby. My baby is to help people overcome their perceived limitations, just like I have with my own life. And so then it was the question of, how do I do that? I can't just talk to them. There's got to be some more powerful way to help them get over that line. And, once you're open and receptive to your new path, everything will just come to you naturally. You don't even have to seek it. So as soon as you're in that frame of mind where you're open and you're receptive and you know that this is not the right path, I don't know what path is, but it's another one, and then you get closer and you get a little bit closer and then it becomes more clear and more clear. So it's not like here I am working in corporate and the next day I knew I had to be a hypnotherapist. It wasn't like that. I had to try, I thought maybe I need to be a personal trainer, so I spoke to all those fitness people, and then I went, actually, it's not me. It's not about training people physically. It's not, I wouldn't get joy out of that. Other people would, but I wouldn't. And then you just do something else and think, oh yeah, this might sound like this would be it. And then you get closer and closer and closer to living your purpose and living your dream, which is what ended up happening for me. So that's how I became a hypnotherapist. I did all the training out of hours, all my study out of hours, and started my business out of hours. And when I look back, I don't know how I did it all. because I worked full-time, studied, and started the business. But when you suddenly have a fire in your belly, all these things are very, very possible.
Sounds familiar, and it looks like maybe there's a lot there to learn for a lot of other people that are considering making that leap from whatever they're doing that they're not enjoying and doing what they're going to start enjoying doing. And for those that are listening who are, roughly our age, Helen, above 40, imagine a time when there was no Google. And people that are listening that have always had Google, there was a time that it didn't exist.
It's funny, isn't it, that I can't even believe it, that I actually had to find this information through a newspaper.
I know, go figure. Oh, my God. Hey, that sounds like a really cool story, right? I really appreciate you sharing that because I know a lot of other people will relate to it. So other than that first kind of initial sessions that you went to with that person that took you along those guided imagery.
4.5 years I did with that institute. 4.5 years.
What I was going to ask, was there anything else? But it sounds like you did heaps in 4.5 years. I didn't realize it was that amount of time.
It was that amount of time to take me to such a stuck place. I just couldn't envisage doing what I really wanted to do. I saw too many barriers and too many limitations. Right. It was something that I couldn't imagine. So I had to go from there to actually doing it, and it took me that long to do it. And so therefore, with the work that I do, because I didn't have any one-on-one hypnotherapy work on me, it was all obviously it takes longer when you're in a group and and so on. I take them through that process so much quicker, obviously. Yeah. So no one stays with me for 4.5 years. Yeah. We don't need to do that kind of work with hypnotherapy. We can do the subconscious mind works so quickly that massive changes and shifts can happen in a very, very, very short period of time.
Yeah, so you just want to bring them in and help set them free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. So now, I follow you on Facebook.
Thank you.
And I notice some of your posts, and they're inspiring, and some of them are quite challenging for me to see, especially when I notice that you're on holiday, you're on a cruise, and you're taking selfies of yourself running around the deck of the ship. What's all that about?
Yes, so that's what my book, Mindset Dominance, is all about. That it's all about not negotiable activity. So obviously, like everybody else, I preferred to stay in my cabin until I was ready to get up. And do you know, Bill, that on that cruise that you saw, there were 2,000 people, and there was a boot camp that was running every morning. Guess how many people in that boot camp?
1.
At the end, it was 1, which was just me. It started off with 5 on the first day. By the second day, it was 2. And then by day 4, it was 1. And, that's right. It's about doing what other people are not prepared to do. So it's about not just hoping, wishing and wanting to be fitter and stronger, or that you can fit into, a particular size jeans, but actually doing something about it. So you know how people say quite often, to be that fit, or I'd kill to wear that size dress. Well, no, you wouldn't, because you haven't.
Yeah.
So,
and we don't want them to do that specifically.
No. But what we do want is for you to get uncomfortable, is for you to do the things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Is for you to, put not think about your immediate pleasure, but think about your long-term pleasure. So for me, I didn't want to come back from that holiday, carrying an extra 6 kilos, because I could see the pain of that when I came back. So I would rather come back feeling really good and energized. It didn't mean that I missed out on stuff. It just meant that I started the day with a really good, strong mental attitude, and I was ready for the whole day to enjoy my day, and perhaps to have the kind of indulgences that I wouldn't normally have, because I had an incredible, huge training session in the morning. So it's all about sweating first so you can enjoy your life later. And, those kind of endorphins, they're unbeatable in terms of how it feels when you're feeling that good.
Yeah, that helps you get through the rest of the day. But what would you say to people that have got injuries, though, and they want to be more fit? So they might have an ankle injury or a knee injury, And there'll be a lot of people listening that have gone through that, and they're just sort of struggling to get back to, overcoming the concern about the injured knee or the whatever.
Yeah. So the
what do
first
people
thing,
do?
the first thing is, is it a real limitation or is it a perceived limitation? Well, the reason I say this, for instance, one of my clients who I had to talk to, like in a public talk, she said to me, "Oh, I've got such bad asthma that my doctor said I'm not allowed to do more than 4 laps of the oval." I thought, how does a doctor even know that? Like 4 laps, like where did that number come from? It just sounds like a really conservative number. And so she's always had it in her mind that she can't do more than 4 laps. Well, after giving my talk, the day after, she texted me and said she did 12 laps with no problem. So immediately tripled what the doctor said was okay and not okay.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Is it really? Because I have a lot of clients who come to me with what seems to be a fact but really is an excuse. So is it really true that you can't do a certain activity? Is it really true? That's the first thing. Secondly, if it is really true, for whatever reason you are actually injured and you can't use that part of your body, there would be another part of your body that you can use. I'm sure of it, because I have been injured many, many times during, the last 15 years, and there's always something you can do. There's always, there's always something else you can do, whether it be swimming or bike riding or push-ups or just using upper body. There's always something you can do to move your body. So that's what I would say, that there is something else that you can do. You may not be able to do what you think needs to be done, but there is something else that you can do. I always have like a backup plan. So if I can't do something, what else can I do? I'm always thinking ahead as to what it is that I need to do to get my exercise done.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about what you'd say to somebody who's trying to do it all on their own, because I know a lot of people will go down that path. They'll make the decision to, I'm going to try and do it on my own. Okay, I can't do it. Well, that's enough. What do you tell people who sort of failed on their own a couple of times?
It's interesting that people think they've got to do things on their own, because I've never done anything on my own. Nothing. So anything I've achieved with assistance and with help. So, when you think about my very first biggest challenge, which was, it sounds like it's not an achievement, but for me it was, which was to do what I needed to do and leave my first marriage. I went, like I said, to the Ken Miller Institute and got that assistance and that help. I couldn't have done it on my own. In terms of getting physically fit, I got a personal trainer. I couldn't have done it on my own. In terms of launching my business, I could have sort of struggled on my own, but there's no way that I could have left the corporate world behind and had a successful business without a business mentor. Because corporate, I didn't know how to run a business. And so now I'm a business mentor myself, and I show other people how to run their business. So every step of the way, even if, and a recent example, because my business employs my husband full-time. So he left corporate to come and assist me. And working together and living together 24/7 brings its own challenges. And I went, hey, even though I'm a therapist and I do couples counselling as well, I need someone else's help. So we went to couples counselling. So I always, to me, the way that I see it, Billy, is if you've got a problem, find a solution. There is somebody out there who's been there. There's someone out there who's done it. There's someone out there who can help. So whatever it is that's going on in my life that there's a gap for, I will find the person who can help me to solve that gap, because we're not supposed to be living in caves on our own. We're supposed to be, the human race was started off as, one big community, and that's how they lived, in primitive times, where, they would share the big kitchen. We're supposed to help each other. We're supposed to get inspiration from each other. We're supposed to get support, and that it's a good thing to ask for help. So I always ask for help in every area of my life, and I just implore people to do the same, that you are not supposed to do it on your own. Don't do it on your own. Someone else can help you. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, brilliant. I love the sound of that, and it's true for me as well. Every time I've needed to achieve something, I've had to seek out somebody who's done it before me, has got some insight, some wisdom into the challenges that I might have to overcome, the pitfalls, all that type of thing, so that it makes my ride a little less bumpy.
Exactly.
It's been awesome getting to chat to you and getting to know you through the last 50 minutes or so. I'm curious, Helen, if somebody wants to find out more about what you do, your book, any of that stuff, where is the best place for them to go?
Okay, it depends who they are. If they want to hear me speak, it would be my helenmitas.com website. That's my umbrella website. helenmitas.com has all different parts to it in terms of speaking, mentoring, and so on. But if they want help with afflictions such as depression, anxiety, weight loss, Hypnofit would be the best one. So HYPNOFIT, hypnofit.com.au. So either of those sites will get them in contact with me.
Awesome. And your book, can they get that from those sites as well?
Yes. So that's that book's called Mindset Dominance, and you can see that on the Helen Mitas site or even on the Mindset Dominance site. So yes, most definitely, and that's where they can get that.
Awesome. Helen, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for interviewing me. I really enjoyed our chat. That was so much fun.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you like this or any other of the Recovery After Stroke podcast episodes, hit the like button if you're watching on social media. Give us a thumbs up if you're watching on the YouTube channel, and give the Recovery After Stroke podcast a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. Doing that will make the podcast more visible to other stroke survivors that are doing it tough right now, and it could help them feel inspired and feel better about the road ahead. Thanks for tuning in.
Discover how to heal your brain after stroke. Go to recoveryafterstroke.com. Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.